Yeah, I was checking him out. He's got interesting pedigree.
Right? If you've ever listened to the Crazy Horse album Left for Dead, you may recognize the singer wasn't a guy named Neil Young. That's because the guy singing it is Mr. Sonny Mone. In addition to singing on the track, Sonny wrote 7 of the 9 songs on the album. As a solo acoustic artist, Sonny has shared the bill with players like Roger McGuinn from the Byrds, Dave Mason and Jim Capaldi from Traffic, Leon Russell, The Tubes, and Tears for Fears. He's also recorded with Matt Malley from Counting Crows, Victor Bisetti from Los Lobos, and our mutual friend Dean Dinning from Toad the Wet Sprocket. And then that was my intro. So one of the questions I was going to get to you about was, do you think your writing style, and I would assume it has changed from, you did that album, I think in 89, but I mean, we can even go before all that. How do you think you write now? So when you wrote Meteor, differently than then? And then one of the things I find fun is you get where you have these great ideas for something and it's at the worst times possible. And you're sitting there like trying to type it into your phone now instead of on a notepad. And the person's looking at you like, you are so rude. And you're like, no, this is going to be good.
It's very important. You don't understand. Yeah, I keep a little stereo recorder on my phone. On the front page, I hit it while I'm driving, ideas. But from Left for Dead, which, got mixed reviews, as I'm sure you saw. It wasn't a stellar record. It was done on a super low budget, but what it didn't have in technological prowess, it definitely made up for. We made up for it in heart. That was
great rock. I mean, the guitars on that is amazing.
Yeah. We worked real hard on that one, and the writing was a little bit sophomoric, I guess. And what's changed for me is, I've done two full-length CDs released, in different capacities over the last 20 years. It's for me, it's always kind of like trying to find your own voice is where you start. And I've always kind of, I was never a rock and roller, even though that Crazy Horse record was like that.
Yeah,
I was always more like, Born to Be Mild kind of dude.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed the acoustic Neil more than the electric Neil when I really thought about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I enjoyed is being on stage with Crazy Horse, turning up my Fender Deluxe and my Les Paul 211 and just screaming shit out was fabulous. I mean, it was therapy. It was, it was surreal, really, to be hanging on stage with those guys. But you evolve, and rock and roll it's limited, So you start looking, you start trying to. Like most artists, you just start trying to branch off into different things and experiment a little bit with your sound.
How did you meet the Crazy Horse guys? Because you had known them for I think 3 years before you did.
That was a funny story. I moved to California.
You're from Boston area.
Yeah, Cape Cod area. And my wife and I moved here. She's from back there as well, but her brother had moved out here. So they were trying to convince us, please come to California. I was at a dead end in Massachusetts. We were playing like the best clubs in Boston. I had a little duo and we were great and hot and, had a crowd, but it wasn't going anywhere. So you had 2 choices back then in 1984. You could go to New York City or you could go to LA, one or the other. And, being a Red Sox fan, New York just didn't seem like an option,
Yeah.
So I ended up in LA.
And the Dodgers are okay.
Yeah, sort of. But
we'll move on.
Yeah. Anyway, we ended up here, and her sister was living here as well, and she moved into this house in Thousand Oaks, California. And her next door neighbor was Billy Talbot from Crazy Horse.
Oh, so funny.
And one day they were just talking, and she got to be neighborly with him after like a year of living there. And he'd disappear for weeks on end and come back, on tour or whatever. And she said, hey, you know what? My brother-in-law just moved here from California. Would you consider hanging out with him for an hour? And so she gave me his phone number. And he said, yeah, sure. And it sat in my wallet for 6 months because I was too afraid to call him.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, I mean, I was scared shitless. I was like, it's Crazy Horse. Come on.
It's cool, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was, 25. I worked up the guts to give him a call. And when I met Billy Talbot, and you know who I'm talking about, the bass player, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. The head bobbing Billy. I called him up and he's like, yeah. Come on right over, man. When I met him, he reminded me of kind of Keith Richards meets Danny DeVito.
Okay.
Something like that. Okay.
All right. There's a combination. I never really put those two guys together.
All attitude, but completely genuine.
Can you imagine if Twins was casted with Keith Richards and not Arnold?
Anyway, I show up at his house and he said, yeah, come over whatever time it was. But he said that he was working. They had not been on tour for 4 years with Neil Young. And they had burned through a lot of their dough. And he was literally had a painting company.
Okay.
And he worked during the day with his painting company, painting houses. And so I show up at the house. I pull up at the driveway. I knock on the door. His wife answers. And she goes, oh, he's out back in the pool. Just stay right here. I'll send him out. So I'm standing in his driveway. And here comes Billy Talbot out the side gate of the house, fully clothed and dripping wet. As in, he just jumped in the pool fully clothed, shoes and all, and came out without even toweling off and shook my hand.
Like, I love rock and roll. Players don't do shit like that.
That was the first moment. That was my introduction to Crazy Horse. I was like, this is kind of unusual, but okay. So I hung out with him that night, and we smoked a little weed. We got down to writing a song that he was working on, and we finished it. The next day, he called me and invited me to a rehearsal for an upcoming tour with Neil. They were going to rehearse at this place in Thousand Oaks. They had Frank, the guitar player, bought a house and turned it into a studio, little house. But it was really like a big man cave, all pinball machines and, stage built and, just
pinball machines totally help with the studio sound.
Totally like dream come true for a 25-year-old kid in music, right?
Yeah.
And before I knew it, I was standing in the middle of this rehearsal space with headphones on, and the click track was louder than anything I'd ever heard, just the click before we even started playing. They handed me a 1957 Stratocaster, and they asked me, do you know Cinnamon Girl? We need to rehearse it.
Oh.
I was like, yeah, sure. And there I was, playing Cinnamon Girl, Crazy Horse. Go figure.
How many songs? So you play live a lot. It's cool because I've run into you a few times through the years where I'll be like, Sonny, and I didn't know you were going to be there. How many songs do you have in your repertoire now that you can just play?
Well, it's funny because I've always kind of considered myself a working musician, and that kind of got beat into my head when I was really young, because you hear from your parents and your friends and everybody else, your girlfriend, whatever, that, there's no security. You're never going to make any money. So you always, we're driven to have a gig.
Yeah.
That's the one constant in my life is I play every week live. It doesn't matter where, and it matters now how much, of course, but not back then.
But do you think a lot of that was any of that to keep up your chops or not necessarily?
Well, in the beginning it was, but over the last 10 years, it's not like I need the rehearsal. I've probably sung Heart of Gold more than Neil Young. If you really want to do the math, for a lot less money. I started building a cover repertoire because I had to work.
Yeah.
And I had to make sure that I was always working. And I found a niche in this whole kind of, Topanga, Laurel Canyon sound that nobody else was doing. 10, even 15, 20 years ago, nobody was doing it.
Did you play at Froggy's? Up in so it used to be in the middle of Topanga. That's why I bring it up.
Oh, no. No, I just ended up taking whatever came my way. I ended up getting like house gigs. I'd have a bar that would hire me 3 nights a week, and I spent 3 years there. I was like Ricky Ricardo, I'm at the club, honey, but it was steady work. I had a kid, I had a house, I had a mortgage. And so I found myself in the year 2006, I was playing 8 shows a week.
Holy crap, that's a lot of work. And that's every week?
What? You get real good. You get real good at reading the crowd. You get real good at your craft if you're doing cover, and when you've got a crowd that's going to accept originals, and so you can do a set or half a set of original material without getting so depressed you want to slit your wrists. I learned a lot. I really.
So what
did.
are the telltales for the crowd that wants to hear originals? And then how many originals can you play without them being like Sing Heart of Gold?
Well, it varies, but there are, first of all, it's funny when I do a cover gig. I don't know for anybody else, but when I do a cover gig, I'm kind of like Amazon. I'll throw my first song out there. Let's say it's Heaven's Door. That's a good sound check song for me, because I know what I'm supposed to sound like when I do it. Guitar is a little off, or this I can tweak while I'm singing it and get away with it. If everybody goes, holy shit, that was just great, then I'm like, oh, okay.
What a fun crowd.
If you like that, then you'll probably like this. And that's how I started building a night. It's just like Amazon as well. If you like, this coffee mug, you'll probably love this water cup. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Pretty much that's what I do. So I just follow my nose through it. When you get through your first set and you suddenly realize that these people are actually listening to you because you've been able to build this rapport with them.
Then you go into like the full Tiny Tim set.
That's when you know that you can say, hey, I'm going to slide in an original tune here. And suddenly they're interested because you haven't tried to jam it down their throat yet. Now they're interested because they loved what you've done up to then. And like, oh, well, what do you have? Then you better deliver. That's the only caveat to the whole thing.
You deliver. Yeah. Do you know who Gary Ballen is?
Yeah, I know Gary from way back at the British Club there on Ventura Boulevard.
Pickwick's.
That's right.
Yeah, I had him on here. Do you know Howie Huberman?
Was Gary the guy that was? I'll take your request, but if you come up with $1, I'll change it.
Fuck that song.
Fuck that song. Right.
Fuck that song guy. I had him on here with Howie Huberman. He was Surprised Howie. I don't know. Have you ever bought a guitar from Howie?
Howie?
Yeah, Howie Huberman. You got Norm and you got Howie. Those are the 2 guitars.
No, but you know what? I think Howie did amp work years ago.
Oh, could be. Yeah, it could.
I think
I had to get an amp. I had to get a cool Sonny amp. You would have dug this thing. It was like a 1960 Fender amp. It was a gorgeous thing. And Howie had me go to somewhere else to get it. But actually, he hooked me up with the guy who repaired it for me.
Yeah, I think I seem to remember that.
I sold it to some dude in New York. And what a bitch it is to ship a friggin' amp to New York. It was a nightmare, man.
Yeah, dangerous business.
Heavy.
Yeah, I've had some nice amps. That's the coolest part about, I think, being a musician is appreciating all the great equipment in the world. I mean, for me,
I thought it was all the hot babes.
Well, yeah, that too. But you know what? Guitars are a damn close second.
I love it. I got one for you. You got a kick out of this. I recently got this. So it's the master record from Superman. It's made out of metal, right? So I took it to my buddies because I'm like, make it play. And we couldn't because the hole's too small. We couldn't get it on the spindle.
That's because they don't want you to play it, probably.
Something. So what I want to do, I want to get like Henry Cavill on this thing. And we go down to the record facility and be like,
see, yeah.
Make it play. How do you make records and make it play? And then
It might be better than a wax master, man. You might be able to make vinyl copies off of that. That's very cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I kind of dig it. What I like about it is that they have the emblem in it. I mean, it's just a fun thing. I keep a lot of stuff. I sell like everything.
I love memorabilia. I have not a lot of it, but what I have, I love. I've got some old Bob Dylan and Paul Simon posters and pictures of the dead around here. I've got Beatle dolls. They wrapped up in plastic behind me.
Yeah, I love it.
A whole bunch of old Crazy Horse stuff that I kept everything, backstage passes and all that kind of stuff.
I got my laminates from the touring, which means something to me. They're kind of neat, but
yeah, it's just great to have,
Most of the stuff I get, like this one here in the background, that's a Louis Armstrong poster. I just sold it. That's why I threw it up there. It ships out tomorrow, but 1946, I want to say. Not neat. Such cool stuff.
I love stuff like that. I mean, I wish I had more, when I think about it, all the stuff that I just probably tossed, T-shirts and.
Well, we were talking about, but the thing is that you're working. You don't think about hoarding. You think about working. And then as a roadie, if I'm there picking up all the guitar picks on the stage, it's kind of like, don't you have better shit to do than like pick up the
top of it? Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, are you going to use that? I'll take it. I remember those guys, that did collect every little thing, and they were a pain in the ass, no doubt.
Yeah. Did you ever work with Gavin Menzies? He was a guitar tech.
No.
He was a good dude. So he passed away, and I bought all of his guitar picks, and it was crazy, man. He had amazing stuff. Even like I had Pink Floyd guitar picks, Elvis Presley guitar picks, like really cool stuff. But his collection was crazy. He must have been that guy. He was just like,
yeah, exactly. And I remember those guys. They collected everything, and they held on to every T-shirt. But I wish but you don't realize until you're older, what you had either. I mean, it's like the 63, D18 that I sold for $1,200. That's now worth, $10,000.
I have a 64 Fender bass in the original case.
Hang on to it.
Yeah, I heard Fender went down though. They're not as valuable.
Doesn't matter. It's better than stock, man. I'll tell you what. Way better than stock. It's a good investment.
I like it. I like some of this stuff. And then every now and then, though, I like that Louis Armstrong one. I don't know. I like that one. So I'm going to wait to pack it till the last minute. But I got some cool posters. I got a Ramones poster that was really cool like yesterday. And then stuff like that. I don't know, it's just what you like. So let's see what we got here. So these are Jimi Hendrix's cologne bottles.
Whoa!
What's funny is if you open them, they have no smell. So I don't know how good he smelled.
Well, age will do that, but
yeah, it's kind of a joke.
Unbelievable. Anything that he even touched, man, to me, is just like, wow, that's a relic,
Oh, it's a neat thing for sure. It's real cute too. But yeah, Jimi Hendrix's cologne bottles.
Wow, Hendrix. That whole school, man. You don't realize how young they were either. Those guys were kids, man. They're 22, 23, 24. Dave Mason wrote only Feeling All Right. I think he was 17.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Joe Cocker cover. I mean,
Buddy Holly. Buddy Holly died at 22 years old. He'd already written all his hits at 22.
You don't realize that when you look at your icons. And I realized that when Neil Young released Harvest, he was my daughter's age.
Isn't it amazing?
And you look at that and you go, wow. So
I used to try to think about like, what's the reasoning? And I think it's, you've got young angst. You have a drive to want to do something with yourself. You just have more intention, focus.
There's a big difference between 40 years ago, because this is always a question I love to pose in a, party conversation about music situation. It's like, okay, so Neil Young wrote I Am a Child when he was 17, when he was still a child. He had 2 records, solo, I think. He had Buffalo Springfield. And then he had nothing. But the record company came in and said, you know what, we believe in you. And he had a record that didn't sell much. And they said, try again. My question is, between the time that Neil left Buffalo Springfield and released Harvest, If he had to work in a car wash for those 2 years or those 18 months, would he still be Neil Young?
Well, you would hope that what it would be is just different songs from different experiences, but
yeah, but would he still be Neil Young, as in Neil Young, the rock star, or would he be Neil Young, the unknown songwriter? Well, my point is, back then, the record company was like, we have faith in you. We think we hear something, so we're going to let you keep going.
Yeah.
Today, that rug is pulled out from you after song 1 fails. There's no what's the word I'm looking for? Patronage.
But the other side of it is you can release your own stuff now. You don't need these guys, you know?
Well, you can, and that's a big, huge part of what's happening right now. But I'm suspect of how that really works.
Well, with my book, you know, I had people reaching out to me, and they were after it started doing good, they reached out to me like, do you want to sign with us as a publishing company? But I asked them, sure, what the hell are you going to do for me? You're not going to do shit. You know, I worked with enough musicians to know that you guys, you don't do that much.
No, they don't.
So I actually didn't even answer any of them.
At the same time, you know, when I look at TikTok or I look at Instagram, I want to believe that it's as democratic as it looks. It's like, you know what? This was something so interesting that everybody jumped on board. Right? Well,
you do have the up. So I've got this guy. I found him on Facebook, and his name was Ben Monteith, and he's a street busker in Glasgow. He's had millions of hits online.
Right.
And I'm trying to surprise him with a guest who I don't want to say because I want it to be a surprise, but I want to see his face when I get this guy in from the band he's covered a couple songs for, because
really,
that's got to be tough, man. You're playing on the street in Glasgow where it rains every day. And then the more I researched him, his wife had cancer. She got like chemo. I mean, the full thing. He's raising 3 boys, and I'm kind of like, this kid is badass, and he's really, really good for real. So, yeah. And that's the power of the internet. I would have never heard about this guy in Glasgow.
Right. But see, I guess what I wonder is, you know, I hear about the TikTok star that, you know, the record companies are all clamoring after, saying, oh, no, I don't need you, which is great. But I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm cynical, but I wonder about the algorithms that actually get you to the point where you're getting the hits that you get, where you're getting the exposure that you're getting. Is that just all serendipity? I mean, is it really that democratic? I want to believe it is, but I just wonder, are you pushed someplace without you really realizing that you're being pushed there? Or...
Well, I think what happens is because I clicked TikTok today, I pulled your phone number, and Susie's going to call you and try and sell you a car warranty an extra 2 times tomorrow.
She already has 4 times today.
Dude, Susie's my new buddy. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing because
maybe that was Suzie that called me from the Attorney General's office today.
No, that was a different.
I was going to go to jail if I didn't pay them $30,000. I'm
actually stoked because of Suzie trying to sell me a car warranty, I don't pick up the phone anymore. And I save tons of time with anything because unless it says the person's name I know, I never will pick it up. So how much time do you save from years ago where you used to pick up all the calls? Or can you imagine now working for a marketing research company? That was my first job. You know how hard that would be? You'd be like, oh, listen here. You tell Suzie, be like, I don't work with Suzie, sir.
There is. Yeah, no, if I don't know you, I'd ignore. If you really need me, leave me a voicemail.
Well, and recently now my phone will be like suspected spam. It's like, oh, yeah, I love thanks, guys.
Potential spam, which is a great name. It's a great name for a band, by the way.
That would be a good name. Yeah, we got this running thing on here where we try to come up with band names. Actually, maybe it's not running. Maybe we tried once. But my friend's band, he had a punk band, and it was what was it? Fat Kid Romance, and that was a punk band.
What is that?
I have no idea, but I thought it was a good one. I thought it was so funny. Fat Kid. No, it was Fat Camp Kid Romance, something like that.
Camp Kid. Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was good. It was meant to be.
Wow. Yeah, Potential Spam, though. That's a good punk rock band.
Potential Spam is good. It's probably taken. Seats taken. I'll bet you if you get on GoDaddy, it's gone.
You know what? Most likely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, have you ever done did you ever write any theme songs or anything like that? Because David, it was funny, like his history with all these theme songs.
right.
Which was a good gig.
I came in a very close second to Friday Night Lights, the football
movie. Yeah, that was a big one because those guys were laying on the freeway and the whole fiasco about it.
Oh, Jesus. That was my $1 chance, and I missed it by a hair. Just somebody else was a little bit more in.
It is who you know. It's tough because people say, oh, it's who you know, and it is. It really is.
The guy representing me said, you know what? You had this. Okay, but you got edged out by somebody that just was in a little deeper than you.
You smile and be like, no problem.
There was no split between which was better because they were equal musically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This guy was just, he was just a little bit tighter with somebody else than I was.
Yeah.
That was my big, the big money opportunity. That's the one I missed. Friday Night Lights.
Come.
I've written a couple of jingles. I've written local jingles. I did Santa Barbara Bank and Trust years ago. I remember that one. And
how did that go?
Oh, Jesus. Is it a credit union up there I did too?
Come deposit your money today.
It was one of those, it was we can find a brighter horizon, growing day by day, making plans the credit union way. Sonny Mone.
What a lick.
Yeah.
Ape man, my ass. Harry Nelson would have been all over you.
I think I got $2,000 buyout for that one. And
that's okay.
Yeah. And then, I did a bunch of indie films with Billy Talbot. He always had something going on. We had this Italian producer. His name was, last name was Cincerapini, 5 Pines in Italian.
Yeah.
We used to call him 5 Pines, and he always had a film going on. And the one I remember that we did was so cool because we had a budget and we rented a studio, and Neil came in and played on it. And I got to hang with Neil all day in the studio, and Nils Lofgren came in because he used to be crazy.
That's cool.
And during that session, Billy, who is of course, the producer, the maestro, we were renting shit from SIR.
Yep.
Left and right, just to see if Nils could play it. And he could.
That's great.
We rented a glockenspiel. And Nils looks at it, he goes, so what's this? And Billy goes, it's a glockenspiel. He goes, you think you can play it?
Did you have to dust it off?
Pretty much. Yeah. But, and Nils looks at it, he goes, I don't know, I'll fuck around with it and see, And so Billy goes, yeah, okay. And he closes the door. And I hear Nils Lofgren just ting, 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 ting. Half hour later, Billy's like, so how's it going, Nils? And he's like, oh, I got it. You want to do a track? And Billy's like, yeah, okay. He put the mics up and he's like, ding, 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 ding. It's just he's a virtuoso in a half an hour. It was amazing to watch this guy. He was so
one of the things, so when I did the Still Life soundtrack and I had all these musicians around, so the one that stood out, they were all amazing, but one of the guys who really made an impact was Snake from Skid Row. He was the guitar player of Skid Row. And it wasn't what he came out with, because what he did was cool. It was the speed at how you pick things up so quick to make something that's like, oh, that's good. How can you do that so fast, where it's so second nature that it's just done?
Yeah, that was Nils. I mean, it was like, he was, when Neil hired him to play on After the Gold Rush, Nils asked him, what guitar should I bring? He goes, oh, don't bring any. You're going to play piano. And Nils was like, I don't play piano. And Neil was like, oh, you'll be all right. And he played piano on After the Gold Rush. I mean, he's just one of those guys, man. He could just.
It's cool. So what do you talk to Neil Young about when you say you're in there hanging out with Neil Young? So one of the cool things I know about him that I think is neat is the trains, the Lionel train companies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what was it? He was a big train kid, and then he, as an adult, he had the opportunity, or did he search out Lionel trains? Or I mean,
Lionel Train was in trouble, and it was public information. They were going under.
so he found out who.
Yeah, Neil walked in and basically saved them. Yeah, yeah. So he was just, that was his thing, man. He had a big barn up on the ranch in Woodside, and it was all trains, you know. And he built this special, because he had a kid with special needs. So
Yeah.
he built a special control system so the kids could actually run it. Is something.
Yeah, come on, how neat is that?
Yeah. No, Neil was like totally into bridge school and all that, you know, him and Peggy. But
Well, what I like to like, so he's a car collector, but they aren't necessarily worth a lot of money. He just buys cars that he likes driving around. I mean, just sort of salt of the earth fella.
I went to a wedding up there on Skyline Drive in Woodside, like right down the street from the ranch. And this is, you know, you've seen the video for Harvest Moon.
Yeah. It's been a while, but sure.
That club where he's playing is just this kind of a shacky sort of bar up there, like not too far from the ranch up on Skyline Drive, or one of those. And so I went to a wedding there for one of the people, you know, in the group, and it was great. And you know, Neil was dancing with Peggy and everybody having a great time, and we all got drunk. Well, I left my camera there, and the next morning I had to drive back from Oakland all the way back over to Woodside to go get my camera. And Skyline Drive comes off of the bridge, and then it's just this beautiful, you know, straight up into the redwoods kind of, you know, road with this big long curve. And of course, I'm hungover. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I called them. I'm like, please, on my camera. And I'm trying to get back there to get my camera. And as I'm coming up this long curve up the hill, I see this car with the fender like shaking. It's like a 1930 hot rod. And I'm like kind of getting out of the way as it's coming around the turn toward me. And as I'm looking, it's freaking Neil, elbow up window, fender flapping, you know what I mean? And it's just like beat to shit hot rod heading for the city, you know? Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. The guy definitely walks his own walk.
Oh, no, definitely. The first time I met him, he showed up at the studio in a, had to be a 1970s Navy surplus gray Dodge pickup truck. That's what he was driving in Hollywood. And he used to do that because nobody would even notice him. If he was driving a Lamborghini, everybody would be looking at him.
Yeah.
He was just an old hippie driving this beat to shit surplus gray, you know, battleship gray.
Yeah, but on the second side, if you're sitting there on Sunset and you saw Neil Young get out of a Lamborghini, it would just be weird. You know, you'd be looking like, or even worse, like what if it was a brand new Bentley? You'd be like, what the hell's he doing in a Bentley?
No, I'll never forget. He showed up in that pickup truck and I'm like, that's cool. You know, he was totally down to earth kind of guy.
Yeah, and then I think what was like for decades, he wouldn't let them license any of his songs for commercials and stuff, right?
He's the only one that's licensed them, and it's only been for a couple of things.
Well, that's a neat guy.
With good reason. I mean, you know, all the way back to the Coke Wars and the Pepsi Wars, where Michael Jackson was, you know, setting his hair on fire, and Neil wrote, this, you know, this note's for you. Yeah, I mean, he always felt that way. And, you know, he said it about when the Beatles catalog, Northern Songs, was sold to Michael Jackson. And with the stroke of a pen, Michael Jackson turned John Lennon into a jingle writer. It was just last night I played Eleanor Rigby for my daughter. She'd never heard it, you know, because we were talking about classical music. I'm like, have you ever heard Eleanor Rigby?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the ability to read music, which I don't.
I don't, yeah.
And neither does she. And I said, well, it doesn't take the ability to read it, because there's always somebody, or now software, that can make that happen for you. If you need manuscript, you can get it done. Paul McCartney sang all of those parts of Eleanor Rigby, all of them. He sang them note for note. And George Martin transcribed them. And then it was given to somebody else who transcribed them for the orchestra that played them. But the parts, Paul McCartney was like, okay, so here's the cello. He's like, wait a minute, what note's that first one? Oh yeah, okay, I got it. Transcribing what McCartney was singing and hearing in his head and turning into Eleanor Rigby. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, that really is. That's something special, but it's Eleanor Rigby.
Yeah, he did the same with his James Bond song, Live and Let Die. He would sing the parts, somebody else would transcribe it into manuscript. But I remember seeing some footage of him actually doing the flute. And he'd be like, and they're like, wait, how? I can't write that down. And he's trying to explain what those flutes are doing in Live and Let Die. You can hear them, like a flutter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's trying to get them to actually write the notes down that he's singing. Yeah, it's incredible. But if you look at like, if you've ever seen the Mozart movie there, what was it called? Is it called Mozart?
Amadeus.
Amadeus, that's correct. Where he's just sitting and he hears it all in his head and he's writing it down.
Yeah.
Playing.
True genius.
And that was the truth. That's really how he wrote.
So
Strictly
cool.
Imagination, you know?
Well, Buddy Holly, you know, he would drive his car all night. He would get in his car, he'd drive all night and just write the songs we all know.
Speaking of manuscript, I just found the original handwritten manuscript that was released somehow through Gold Mountain, which was the old publishing company for Neil and for Crazy Horse, of a whole bunch of Crazy Horse songs, including the original. And this is on like some weird parchment, and it looks like it was, reprinted, but it looks like it's in Danny Whitten's hand for "I Don't Want to Talk About It," the big song that Rod Stewart ended up covering it, making a huge hit.
That's neat.
I just found it. It's on this cool kind of thick parchment, and it's kind of in this orangey brown ink.
Huh.
And I was looking at it going, I wonder what this is worth someday. Interesting.
That's cool. I'd be into it if you want to sell it. I don't know what it's worth though, because I'd have to see it, but I'm into it. So I got the Pink Floyd thing. I have a Frank Sinatra one too.
I was wondering about that. I'll send you some photos of that.
Please. Yeah, that sounds kind of neat. You know what it is it's the time. So when you're getting something like that, you're capturing the essence of a whole movement of stuff,
Yeah, a moment.
That's neat. I'm into that. The guitar picks and stuff, I don't know, it doesn't mean that much to me. It's these specific oddities that are
stuff like that it's hard to come by because it's, limited.
Yeah, I had Stevie Nicks' diary at one point.
Wow.
I know I had some really kooky handwritten stuff. So
I have a photo, maybe two photo album of the Russ Never Sleeps tour. Neil Young's big tour, 70.
Sure.
That was taken by a photographer who was actually a friend of Neil and Crazy Horse. And a lot of the photos were taken from like foot of the stage or on stage, but they're all just like candid shots that were taken by a photographer, not like this professional, like it was set up, just random shots, but there's a lot of them in the thing. I haven't looked at it in years. It's up behind me somewhere.
That'd be interesting. So I just got in, it's a bunch of Bob Marley photos that have never been released. I have the copyright to them all. He did a show in New Zealand. So they're all out of New Zealand.
I love Bob Marley.
Oh, yeah.
I have, same thing. I was just wondering about, because you do memorabilia. That's interesting. I have a candid photo of John Lennon and Yoko that was taken as they were getting out of a limousine in Boston, probably back in the early 70s. And it's just a candid shot that my wife bought from a street photographer in 1974.
It's white? The car color is white?
No, the limousine is black, but it's it's a candid photo.
So it's just some random guy took it. Forget it. Anyway.
Yeah, the guy's a street photographer. So that's what he used to do is, take pictures of celebrities and then resell them on the street. And so my wife bought a copy of this picture of just a random picture of John Lennon and Yoko, but it's a pretty good photo of them stepping out of a limousine. kind of wild. I mean, it's a one of a kind. It's so random. The photo, you can tell. I have it here somewhere.
That's kind of neat. Did the guy who took the photo sign it, or do you know the guy's name?
Nope, no information on it at all. It's just like a developed photo from the 70s.
Yeah.
Looks like.
See, this is neat because like the Bob Marley ones, I have all the negatives and everything, and I have the rights and the whole deal. So
yeah,
I have. I got the front of. I got Belladonna, Stevie Nicks' album Belladonna. I have the photo. I have the negative, and I have all the stuff for that too. It's all in it. It's really that's cool because it's really. She did some great poses and photography stuff. I mean. All the flowing clothes. That's one of the ones I kept. She's wearing that big flowing outfit, and she's like a bird ready to take off. It's so cool.
That was very creative that time right there for them.
Yeah, neat stuff. All right. Well, it was super good catching up with you. I look forward to bugging you soon.
Yeah, please.
I'll have to grab a beer.
Yep. Send me a link to the podcast. I'd love to hear it. And
yeah, it's thanks for reminding me. So it's on all of these Instagrams and stuff. It's Party of Stars, and then the podcast Party Like a Rockstar podcast on Facebook.
All right, Joel. Thank you.
Later, Sonny.
Adios.